so you don't really care about cars all that much, or you find the notion of driving in circles akin to a visit to the dentist. Why in the world should you consider adding a race game to your library? Firstly, racing games are not made equal. This isn't the 80s anymore. Racers no longer feature limited animation sprites on a repetitive background. Hey, you leave my pole position and pit stop alone. Yeah, I'm fucking old. Racing games today really operate along an axis that defines their feel and immersion level, arcade versus simulations. If you've been gaming for very long, you'll undoubtedly have been exposed to some sort of racing title. I don't know what the kids are playing these days, but games such as F-Zero or Mario Kart are on the extreme of the arcade side of the spectrum. I encourage you not to limit your expectations of racing games solely on these experiences, and instead look to take a dip further into the simulation side. Before you click off the video, I'm not talking about replicating driving your Honda Civic with an aftermarket spoiler and muffler down the highway, Creed blasting into the air. Though to be fair, there are games out there that will probably let you do that too. More simulation-focused titles will have emphasis on the physics involved with getting a car around the track, and it's a lot more complicated than the aforementioned mainstream racing fare would lead you to believe. Just driving a car at 200 miles per hour is something you have to be careful with in life. This is the type of immersion I'm speaking of when it comes to simulators, and that's before getting into all the fancy equipment you can buy to recreate the experience. Oh, did you think it's just the throttle, brake, and some steering? That's true in the same way that a platformer is just about jumping. Card games are about taking tricks, and RPGs are about reading text boxes. Racing is complicated, and tacks on an execution requirement that makes Super Meat Boy look pedestrian. Racing is just about doing the same lap over and over again. It's boring. Pretty much every game in existence is about doing some small task over and over again for a result. Designers are clever in how they disguise them, and games might have a selection of tasks to do in order to break it up and make it even less noticeable. But this fundamental truth will remain. Racing isn't any different in this regard. Yeah, from a bird's eye view, you lap the circuit. That circuit is made up of several different turns, and the summation of your performance through the turns dictates your lap time. Except, each turn is a microcosm in itself, broken down into entry, apex, and exit. Poor performance in any of these areas impacts the others, and that's before you see how the exit of one corner can impact the entry of the next. How you position your car, how you brake, when you turn in, how hard you turn in. Honestly, there's too much here to list, and that's ignoring the other racers on the track, or more top-level strategy. There's just a ton to learn and master here, and because of the speeds of the car around the track, your execution must be completely on point. Braking a tenth of a second off optimal could mean your car is 5 to 10 meters away from the best braking point, which means a loss of time through the corner. You will not be perfect, and unlike that platformer, missing your execution is not necessarily met with instant failure, as the other drivers on the track are under the same stress you are and will subsequently make similar mistakes. The winner, assuming equal car strength, is just the person who maintained focus the best and made the fewest mistakes. Racing is similar to real life in a way. You always have the chance to make small adjustments that improve your situation or character, and while each change may not in itself be particularly noticeable, the sum of your diligence works out to a large effect. The challenge is in continuing to push for positive change, maintaining that hunger for improvement. With all of that complexity comes the immense satisfaction when it all comes together. Aside from the joy of just driving the car and the sensation of speed, the hard, visible truth of the stopwatch will give you tangible proof of your effort. At first, this will happen on completion of each lap as you chase ever-decreasing times, but as you spend more time with the process, you'll start to recognize this feeling on smaller moments. Nailing a difficult corner at high speed will make you feel like a god, and give you just a little bit more confidence to try and take it even more aggressively. Thankfully, unlike a real car, video game racing doesn't carry quite the consequence of pushing too hard, so there's no reason you shouldn't be bold. And speaking of bold, the adrenaline rush from racing side by side, inches apart from another car down the straight or around corners, knowing just a twitch wrong could end your race, and then outbraking them and seeing their car falling behind in your rear mirror. Well, let's just say no RPG text box replicates that feeling. The vast majority of us will never know what it's like to strap into a high-performance car and take it for a spin around the track, as it's just so damn expensive. Fortunately for us, racing video games allow us the chance to get a taste of that experience for a fraction of a percent of the cost of doing it for real. Quite a few of the most acclaimed pieces of racing software aren't cutting-edge tech, so you can easily find them at very reasonable prices. several around the $20 price point, even when not on sale. You may want to try something that isn't pure sim straight out of the gate to help you get acclimated though, and while I don't have extensive experience with the breadth of titles available, I can at least confirm that Codemasters F1 titles are fantastic as an entry point. The game can be tuned to almost a pure arcade experience for new players, allowing such a player to slowly turn up the simulation side as they become comfortable. As far as input devices, you don't need to break the bank here either, as the lowly gamepad controller works fantastically these days for introductory kit. The only recommendation I would make here is to ensure that your controller has two things: a joystick instead of just a D-pad, and at least two buttons that have graduated inputs. The latter is exceptionally important, as you'll quickly find that good driving requires you to have finer control over throttle and brake than just 100% and 0%. Thankfully, this is pretty easily accomplished. I think any controller made in the past 10 years for a major console will have this functionality. I myself have used an Xbox 360 controller on my PC, and it's been everything I've needed. You can always decide to take the plunge on a wheel and pedals later, if you want a more immersive experience. So what are you waiting for? Give racing a spin. It's a lot more fun than you might think.